Hi everyone, Petrik here. So we are approaching the end of March, and I think in today's video I'll be talking about all the books that I want to read next month, in the month of April. And this is one of those months where my reading mood pretty much cannot decide which book that I want to read. So remember that this is just my reading plan, but I do have some priority books that I definitely will get around to reading. But at the same time, I want to read so many books. So let's see how many books I can read next month. But the first one that I will be reading in the month of April, there's a good chance I'll be continuing the Witchwood Crown by Ted Williams. I am in the middle of reading this right now. I'm about, I think this is 100 pages into the Witchwood Crown. This is the first book in The Last King of Western Art by Ted Williams, which is the sequel series to the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn trilogy. And don't worry, I know that I have received some comments asking me whether I have read the bridge novella, The Heart of What Was Lost or not. And yeah, I have read it. So no worries on that. I am all prepared to read the Witchwood Crown. And well, from the first 100 pages, I can certainly say that it is good to be back in the world of Western art. It is good to be reading Ted Williams' writing again. I really love the way he writes. His prose is just so delightful and also beautiful. As I said in my review of the Dragonbone Chair and also Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn trilogy, there is really something about Ted Williams' writing in the Western art saga that felt so melancholic, and it is reflected again in the Witchwood Crown. Even though this one is published, I think, 2 decades after the ending of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn trilogy. Yeah, I think it has been 2 decades after To Green Angel Tower. But at the same time, although so many times, so many years have passed, both in our world and also in the series, but at the same time, it really felt like I haven't moved on from this world. It's really good to be back, to experience the story of the characters in this world. Again, both new and also returning characters that made it to this book. So yeah, as I said, I'm not sure whether I will be able to finish this by this month, but if not, I think I will be able to finish this in the first few days of April. So this will be the first one that I read, and then after that, there is no doubt that I will be reading Disquiet Gods by Christopher Rocchio. Yeah, I am finally here. This is the penultimate installment of the Sun Eater series, one of my top favorite series of all time now, and it is easily my number one favorite sci-fi series of all time right now, together with Red Rising Saga by Pierce Brown. And I have read every book in the Sun Eater series, not just the main books, but also the collection of short stories and also the companion novels and novella, all of them. So only Disquiet Gods is left. I own the advanced reading copy of Disquiet Gods for I think a month now, but I still haven't got around to reading it because, as I said, I want to read everything in the Sun Eater first. And now that I have done that, once I have finished reading the Witchwood Crown, I will be reading Disquiet Gods. I expect this to be the best of the series so far, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that will come true, because it will be really difficult to top Demon in White and also Kingdoms of Death, the third and the fourth book in the series. And I'm hoping that Disquiet Gods will be the tiebreaker to decide which one will truly reign as the supreme king of the best sci-fi series from my analysis and perspective. Anyway, but yeah, I will post a full spoiler-free review of Disquiet Gods once I finished it. But once I am done with Disquiet Gods, I think the next priority book that I want to read, this will be Herald by Rob J. Hayes. This is my Patreon pick for the book of the month this month, and I'm thankful because I cannot decide. I gave the options to choose between Herald by Rob J. Hayes, the first book in the Age of the God Eaters saga or series, and also The Daughter's War by Christopher Buhlman. So this one is the prequel novel that is being released this year, but this is the prequel novel to The Black Tongue Thief. I had such a great time reading The Black Tongue Thief about 2 years ago, and I expect pretty much the same thing when it comes to The Daughter's War. I couldn't choose which one to prioritize, so I asked my patrons, and they have decided with their votes, and the votes goes to Herald by Rob J. Hayes. At the same time, I wanted to wait for the physical copy to arrive to my place first from the Kickstarter campaign, but I'm not sure when that will arrive, hopefully within the month of April. But If not, I will still read Harold within next month. I'm so excited to be reading more books by Rob J. Hayes. It has been quite a while, really. The last book by him that I read, it was for Spirits of Vengeance, which is the third book in the Mortal Technique series, and so far, my favorite book by Rob J. Hayes. But Rob has been teasing the arrival of the God Eater saga for years now. He considered it to be his best work and also his most ambitious saga to date, and I am excited to find out how much I will end up enjoying Harold. And by the way, I really love the cover art and design of this book. I think it is so beautiful. It's simple but also so striking and beautiful. The cover artist Ashper and also the cover designer Sean T. King did such a great job with this cover art and design. I look forward to receiving the physical copy and also reading this book. So those three books that I just mentioned, all of them are big books. I think they are all more than 700 pages long. Yeah, the Witchwood Crown, Disquiet Gods, and also Harold. I think all three are at least 600 pages long. I know that the Witchwood Crown is 700 pages. The same notion is also applicable to this book, The Return to Eden by Philip Chase. So as I mentioned in my previous TBR video, I wanted to get around to this one last month, but due to how busy I am, as always, I couldn't get around to it. But this time, I really want to make sure that I manage to read Return to Eden in the month of April while my memory and also connection with the world and the characters still intact. Many people have told me that The Return to Eden is their favorite book in the trilogy, in the Eden trilogy, and I hope that will be the same for me. For me right now, my favorite is still the first book, The Way of Eden. The second book, The Prophet of Eden, was good as well. But yeah, in my opinion, the first book was better, and I'm hoping that this will be a satisfying conclusion to the trilogy. But because the first 4 books that I plan to tackle in the month of April are all big books, I definitely will have to read some small books as well as a palate cleanser, or just to give me a sense of progression that I have been reading something. I have been finishing a book or two. So the next one will be The Crown of Omens by E.J. Doble. This one is the prequel novella to The Fangs of War, the first book in the Blood and Steel saga that I finished within this month. If I'm not mistaken, The Crown of Omens take place about 20 or 30 years before the events of The Fangs of War. And I think before I jump into the sequel, I think it's better for me to read this one first, because I have a feeling this one will be more connected to The Fangs of War rather than the sequel. But again, I don't know anything about this book, but I had a great time reading The Fangs of War. I will be talking about that more in my March wrap-up video. But yeah, this is a prequel novella. It's only about 100 pages long. I'm sure I can finish this within a day or two. And then after that, I want to read this murder mystery novel. And it is The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. I know this is very different from the usual kind of books that I read, because most of the time I'm reading fantasy or sci-fi books. That's it. But at the same time, when it comes to storytelling, I do love murder mystery. That's why when I read a fantasy book and then it has a murder mystery, I tend most often than not to enjoy it. Like for example, The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett, or maybe some books by Brandon Sanderson, because Brandon Sanderson, many of his fantasy books do contain murder mystery elements. But this one, this is contemporary, and this is written by Richard Osman. This is recommended to me by Daniel Rustage, who is a rapper. And yeah, beyond that, I have heard a lot of great things about the Thursday Murder Club series, and I do really like the neat design going on with the series. I think the series has been finished by the fourth book. The title of the 4th book is The Last Devil to Die, and yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, that book is the final book in the Thursday Murder Club series. And I do plan, assuming that I like this one, I do plan to finish reading the entire series within this month. Oh, sorry, I meant within this year. This book, as expected, of a murder mystery is not too big. I think it's only about 200 or 300 pages long. And I hope that this will be a great palate cleanser amidst all the big fantasy and sci-fi books that I read. And then after that, well, I want to read Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. I think that's how you pronounce the name. But I think for this one, A Gentleman in Moscow, this is one of the most highly praised books that I have ever seen or heard, really. But I don't know too much about this one. One of my co-bloggers told me that reading A Gentleman in Moscow really reminded her of reading The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I think it is from the tone or maybe from the writing style. And that is a super huge endorsement for me because the Cemetery of Forgotten Books is really my favorite non-SFF series of all time. And A Gentleman in Moscow is really one of my priority standalone books that I want to read this year. I have plenty of them, such as The Library at Mount Shar and also Guns of the Dawn and more. But yeah, I think I will start by reading A Gentleman in Moscow. If you have watched the TV show adaptation of this book, do let me know whether it is good or not. Somehow, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about the TV show adaptation. But yeah, I look forward to reading this one. Do let me know if you have read this book, whether you enjoy it or not. And finally, the last planned book that I want to tackle next month, it is Bonds of Chaos by Zach Argyle, the third and the final book in the Threadlight trilogy. Yeah, this one, this omnibus edition. The series so far, I have read the first 2 books in the trilogy. Both of them are really enjoyable for me anyway. I think I will talk about that in more details in my March wrap-up video, but I'm excited to find out how Bonds of Chaos will conclude the trilogy. It is a short trilogy, yeah. Each book is only about 400 pages long, and I think in total, this entire trilogy, I think in total, it is less than 300,000 words long. So one Witchwood Crown by Ted Williams is bigger than the entire trilogy of the Threadlight trilogy by Zach Argyle. Yeah, I'm not kidding. But no worries, big book doesn't mean it's always a great book. Sometimes a shorter book can have a lasting impact, as strong as some big fantasy and sci-fi books. It all depends on execution, and I really hope that Zach Argyle will be able to conclude this trilogy satisfyingly. For now, I would just say though, if you are a fan of Sanderson's books such as Mistborn, the Storm Knight Archive, and also Lightbringer by Brand Wicks, and you want a shorter version of them, a more compact and shorter version of them, then I think you will not go wrong with trying reading the Threadlight trilogy. And yeah, I think that's all the 8 novels that I plan to read. That's 4 big books and also 4 small books. I think that's quite the right balance. I don't plan to tackle all big books within a single month because my life keeps getting busier and busier, and I want to make sure that I have time for everything. Also, I don't think I'll be reading a lot of manga volumes in the month of April because this month, in the month of March, I'm spending my time reading pretty much almost the entire volumes of Naruto. Well, I finished reading all the volumes of Naruto again. I've started from volume 16 up to the end. So yeah, you will know what I will mention later in my wrap-up video as well. But yeah, that's my plan for the month of April. Do let me know what you think about all the books that I plan to tackle next month. And as always, do tell me, which book do you plan to read next month as well? And which one are you most excited for? And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for me today. As always, thank you so much for watching and thank you for your support. Bye-bye. Lastly, I want to say thank you so much once again to all my patrons who keep on supporting me.